In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Praise be to God, and peace and blessings be upon the messenger of God. One of the issues that is often raised to cast doubt on Islamic history is the issue of the jizya poll, tax levied on the people of the book and the Zoroastrians. This jizya was collected from non-Muslims in Islamic lands or states. The issue is, of course, a historical one, not readily applicable in our time, but it is frequently raised because Muslims throughout Islamic history, during the time of the Prophet peace and blessings be upon him, the era of the rightly guided caliphs, may God be pleased with them, the Umayyad and Abbasid dynasties, and other powerful states that collected jizya from non-Muslims in their lands, are accused of unjustly collecting this jizya from non-Muslims, burdening them and being a mere collection of money and an oppression of non-Muslims or non-Muslim minorities living in the Muslim state. The truth is that the jizya is quite different. I see it as a very sophisticated form of dealing with non-Muslim communities in the Muslim state, and I respond. This is a brief discussion of this misconception in this episode. The topic has many details, and scholars have written extensively about it. We have also covered it in several videos in the series dedicated to the rightly guided caliphate, specifically during the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab or Abu Bakr al-Siddiq before him. We've discussed the jizya poll tax extensively before. Today, we'll summarize it. We'll say that the jizya was imposed for specific reasons. What is the jizya? It's a tax paid by non-Muslims in the Muslim state in exchange for the zakat arms paid by Muslims in the Muslim state. The jizya isn't simply about collecting money from people, nor is its purpose solely to collect funds. Firstly, the
والامر الثاني نظير الانتفاع بخدمات الدوله. انا عندي شوارع وعندي مستشفيات وعندي مصالح حكوميه وعندي كهرباء وعندي كذا وكذا امور الدوله.
Jizya is a sign of allegiance to the state's authority, indicating that I belong to this state, abide by its laws, and participate in its affairs. By paying this jizya, I am a subject of this state. Secondly, it's in return for benefiting from the state's services. I have roads, hospitals, government offices, electricity, and so on. The state has an army to defend it, and it has expenses. The entire population participates in these services. The expenses, and among these people are the non-Muslims who are standing in line, from whom I benefit from the services provided by the state. A third thing is very important to it is an alternative to military service. The alternative to the Muslim state is an army, and this army defends the state. This army is supposed to be, according to Islamic law, an army of faith that fights for the sake of God, that fights for the victory of this religion, and has religious motives in its war. So, this non-Muslim is not committed to this faith. How can I tell him that I defend the Quran and the Sunnah when he doesn't believe in the Holy Quran or the Sunnah? It was merciful not to obligate or force him to do this. On the contrary, if I take the jizya from him, I am obligated to defend him, and if I am unable to defend him, I must return his jizya. So, he is not only paying an alternative to military service, not only is he no longer obligated to participate in an army that does not believe in his faith, but I am also supposed to defend him, and if I am able to defend him, the jizya must be returned. There are many instances of returning the jizya in the Islamic state throughout history for those whom we were unable to defend. Review these situations in Islamic history. They are numerous. Who among non-Muslims should pay the jizya? Do all non-Muslims pay the jizya in their Muslim state? No, the jizya is not paid by non-Muslims in the Muslim state except for sane and healthy men. What does this mean? This means that women are not obligated to pay jizya. It is only for men who are capable of fighting. I collected the jizya from them as an alternative to military service. So, if a woman doesn't fight, then she doesn't pay jizya. Similarly, a young boy or a young child doesn't pay jizya. A person with a chronic, incurable illness doesn't pay jizya, as they will remain disabled for life. A mentally ill person doesn't pay jizya. A monk or priest secluded in a church who doesn't jizya unless they are capable of fighting. Imagine the difference between the two. What is the amount? What is the amount of jizya? What verses explain this, making things easier for non-Muslims in a Muslim country? Because I have a zakat amount. How much is it compared to a Muslim? 2.5% of what? From the principle of the wealth, meaning if I have a fortune of £1 million or £100 million, I pay 2.5% of my principal wealth. I don't pay it from what I earned this year or from my annual income. I pay it from the principle of the wealth. But the jizya is a fixed amount that the judge or ruler pays every year, and this fixed amount is not related to the principle of his wealth. For example, during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the wealthy among the people of the book, whether Jewish, Christian, or even Zoroastrian, paid 48 dirhams per year. The middle class paid 24, those closer to poverty paid 12, and the very poor paid nothing. So, I have 48 and 24, and the judge assesses each person's situation and says, this one owes this one owes that, and this one owes that. These are the people who are supposed to pay the jizya in the first place. Now, let me give an example of what would happen if I lived during Umar's time so you can see how much Islamic history has been misrepresented. These facts aren't clear to people. I'm saying this because let me explain a real-life situation. Our master Omar used to take 48 dirhams from the wealthy. I will assume with you now that there is a Muslim in the time of our master Omar who owns 100,000 dirhams. How much will he pay in zakat? The one who has 100,000 dirhams will pay 2.5% zakat, which means 2,500 dirhams, right? 2,500 dirhams per year. Now, if there is a Christian or Jewish neighbor next to him who has 100,000 dirhams like him, how much will he pay? The Muslim pays 48 dirhams, while the other pays 2,500 because he is paying on the principle of his wealth. The other pays 48 dirhams because he is wealthy. If he is middle class, he would pay less, but I am saying that he has 100,000 dirhams. So he is wealthy and will pay the maximum, the highest bracket of 48 dirhams, while the Muslim will pay 2,500 dirhams, meaning he is more than 50 times more. Imagine this: if there is another neighbor, a woman, with 100,000 dirhams, how much would she pay? She is Christian or Muslim, and she doesn't pay at all because she is a woman. Now, if there is a Muslim woman with 100,000 dirhams, she will pay 2,500 dirhams. Now, if there is a Christian or Jewish child who inherits 100,000 dirhams, how much would he pay? He doesn't pay anything because he's a child. So, if a Muslim child inherits 100,000 dirhams, he will pay 2,500 dirhams on the 100,000 dirhams, and so on. If there is a mentally ill or disabled non-Muslim, no money is available. And if there is a mentally ill or disabled Muslim who has wealth, he will pay 2,500. If there is a Christian priest or a Jewish rabbi who has 100,000 dirhams, he will not pay anything. And if there is a Muslim sheikh, the imam of a mosque, who has 100,000 dirhams, he will pay 2,500. Where is the injustice? Here, when I calculate this, why isn't Islamic history presented to us with such clarity? Why is it presented in this way, leading us to believe that the jizya was an injustice to non-Muslims in the Muslim state? In return for the 48,000 dirhams they pay, whether 48,024 or 12 they receive numerous rights: freedom of worship, freedom of belief, freedom to protect their lives and property, freedom to work, freedom to own property, and even the right to financial support from the Muslim treasury if they are poor or unable to support themselves. They accuse Islam of making the jizya a form of humiliation, as they interpret the verse, until they pay the jizya willingly while they are humbled. The humiliation in this verse, as Ibn al-Qayyim said, is their submission to the laws of the religion and the payment of the jizya. This is the humiliation, not the subjugation. Don't want to call it jizya, call it sadaqah. He replied, fine, call it sadaqah. The important thing is that you pay it and don't make a fuss about it. He insisted it must be called jizya as it appears in the Book of God and in the prophetic traditions. So, call it sadaqah, call it a tax, call it whatever you want, it's not our problem. Muslim rulers throughout the history of Islamic states allowed the jizya to be paid in cash or in kind, which was also a form of facilitation. It wasn't necessary to pay it in money, pay us sheep cloth, or worth 48 dirhams. This was also a way of making it easier. You did have to give me my money in cash, you could give it in kind. Jizya could be delayed until the crops ripened. Abu Ubaid said in his book, Al-Amal the funds, the reason for the delay to be lenient with them, meaning he doesn't have the ability now. Postpone it a little until his crops ripen and he sells them, then he can give me my money instead of borrowing and becoming indebted. The jizya is waived upon the death of the dhimmi. Imagine a dhimmi meaning one of the people of the book, under the protection of the Muslims, under the protection of God and his messenger. This is a big issue, meaning he was given value and protection. If he dies and owes jizya, his heirs don't pay it. Imagine, but if he owes zakat, they will pay it. They will pay zakat, but the people of the book don't pay if he dies without paying what he owed. We don't obligate the heirs. We don't burden them with two calamities, the calamity of his death and the calamity of them having to pay the jizya. If the Muslims fail to defend the dhimmi, he has his jizya even if it has already been taken from him. And if he is asked to defend the Muslims, suppose someone joins the army and the Muslim state accepts his entry into the army, and he agrees to this without coercion. Why is the jizya waived for him? The jizya is not valid because he was paying it in exchange for not joining the army, but he joined it, so the jizya is waived for him. If I take this view, where is the injustice in this jizya? On the contrary, this is one way of drawing the hearts of non-Muslims closer to Islam, so that they might consider this law and this religion and embrace it. Thus, it is made easier for them. As we saw in the examples we gave, the Muslim